After returning from Moran, we were planning for the final frontier of Arunachal Pradesh, a visit to which was the main reason for our planning the trip to the northeast this time. Since leaving the northeast in 2001, we have been asked to plan for a trip there a number of times by our colleague Sri Satyanarayanji. In no mood to go back to that place, we politely declined all suggestions on the ground of too much of our commitments on this side. But as the pressure mounted and our deadline for putting a full stop for the type of activities we have been doing drew nearer, we finally decided to visit a few places in Assam and Arunachal Pradesh. Therefore, when Sri Satyanarayanji came down to Mysore in April 2012, our plans to visit Wakro, Arunachal Pradesh in October and November 2012 was discussed with him. And there we were in Assam on 31st October 2012 on the way to Arunachal Pradesh. Thus, on 1st November 2012, after breakfast by 8 am, we took leave of Sri Suresh and reached the place to catch the public transport that could take us to Tinsukia. As soon as we got down, an empty winger was waiting for the passengers. These vehicles, because of their totally unreliable road maneuverability, discarded elsewhere in the country, have become the standard transport vehicles in the northeast, where no administration seems to be concerned about the safety of human life. Based on the mood of the driver, these vehicles could accommodate any number of passengers. Fully confident of a rich morning harvest, the driver soon started the vehicle only to stop it at every conceivable point to fill the vehicle to its brim. As if happy with the morning harvest, the driver was in full flow by pressing the accelerator at the maximum possible, creating butterflies in our stomach. Neither the soothing Bihu songs played over the cassette player nor the beautiful sights of tea gardens on either side were sufficient to reduce their number. The journey took us to the IAF station at Jabua and Dibrugarh Aerodrome at Mohanbari. By around 10:30, without any damage, we reached Tinsukia and checked with Kamdar Medicals about our inner line permits and availability of transport for our further travel to Wakro in Arunachal Pradesh. After waiting nearly for an hour, our inner line permits reached through the driver of the first bus from Wakro. It is a paper pass issued by Arunachal Pradesh government officials permitting a specific person to cross over into the state. It is a legacy started by Pandit Nehru's government to safeguard the unique tribal culture of the state and is still in vogue, though those who are out to destroy that unique tribal culture have been able to do it despite the regulations. India has been a land of opportunities thanks to the constitution that cannot be implemented on a certain section of people belonging to certain religions. Soon, the driver of a sumo who was deputed to take us to Wakro reported and we were off to our next destination, Namsai in Lohit district in Arunachal Pradesh. The journey through tea growing areas of Makum and Dumduma on National Highway 37 takes a turn towards right at Rupai to join National Highway 52 and goes through Kakopathar, Mahadevpur, Namsai, Wakro, Parshuramkund and Teju. This route is the new gateway to Teju, the district headquarters of Lohit district of Arunachal Pradesh. We have been told that the BRTF has done a commendable job to make the part of the route all weather proof since our leaving the northeast in the year 2001. Naturally, we were very keen to see that part of the road. During the earlier days, one of the ways to reach Teju was crossing over the much dreaded turbulent Lohit River and few of its tributaries. That journey to Teju during the rainy season was a sheer misery laden with high risk to life. Even a mild shower on the upper areas could create sudden rush of waters from the higher reaches of Himalayan ranges and could wreak hell on the downstream, throwing the boats and its passengers off balance. Many lives used to be lost in the process at regular intervals. In those days, the public transport bus from Tinsukia used to take the passengers only up to Namsai, from where they had to cross the river to reach Chaukam. Crossing another river would take them to Alubari Ghat, where they meet the dreaded turbulent river Lohit. Crossing it, they would reach Batismai, the last hurdle to be crossed, and taking the next road transport would take them to Teju. When I personally went through the ordeal first time in 1994, we were determined to reduce the hardships faced by our students of Lohit district. The tragic incident that took place in the following year, where a couple of students who were on the way to join the school in Amliang lost life, only strengthened our resolve to change the school session to January to November. This move brought a lot of goodwill to the institution, but was opposed by a few of the staff insensitive to the issues on the ground. Starting from November to December, when the flow of water in the river reduces, the army division, to speed up their supplies for higher altitude in the Himalayan mountains, places floating bridges across Chaukam, Namsai and Alubari Ghats, enabling the road transport to reach Teju directly from Tinsukia. The journey to Teju during that period is the most pleasant and enjoyable. We were told that the earliest road to Teju from Tinsukia was only from Sadhya Ghat through Digaru and Batis mines. Elephants were used to transport people across Digaru, a river low on water level but high on undercurrents with huge boulders. We were also told that prior to 1988-89, Digaru was only a small stream of about 3 to 5 feet width, but following summer rains turned into a vast riverbed now known as Batis mines. With all this at the back of our minds about the terrain we were about to venture, we were eager to see the new 4x4 road laid by BRTF from Rupai to Namsai. The journey from Rupai to Namsai through well-constructed road takes one through the rice-growing areas of Tinsukia district. The endless tracts of fertile lands with a flourishing paddy cultivation on either side of the road was wonderful sight to behold. The straight and well-constructed road only makes it more pleasant and memorable. We were told that our lunch would be with Srimati Jayanti Pertin, one of our ex-students, who is now a circle officer at Namsai. As soon as we reached Namsai, Sri N.D. Bhai was there to guide us to EAC's office. Sri N.D. Bhai, hailing from Uttarakhand, has been working with Appana Vidyabhavan and Kasturba Gandhi Balika Vidyalaya, Wakro, for quite some time. He is also of great assistance to Satyanarayanji and his work there. Surprisingly, we noticed that he took us to EAC's office instead of circle office. It was only later we learned that Jayanti Pertin was already promoted as EAC of the area. We soon proceeded to her official residence in the nearby area. After exchanging pleasantries, we had a wonderful lunch amidst talks of olden days. Srimati Jayanti Pertin was one of the gifted students of 1993-94 batch and was expected to scale new heights in career graph. That within a short time she has already become EAC was most satisfying to see. Though married and mother of 3 children, she has not changed a bit, including her extreme humility and a unique way of talking. After lunch, she personally accompanied us to the house of Srimati Timita, another ex-student. There we met Srimati Silavati, another batchmate of Srimati Jayanti. While Timita has become a school teacher, Silavati, after completing her PhD, has opted for development sector. Both appear to be very keen to learn from us more about development work and getting an organization registered. The discussions also centered around the local issues. It was painful to learn about the social evils like drugs that has crept among the youth of the area. I have always observed that Khamti boys as the most polite and well-behaved students of our schools. Therefore, it was painful to learn the new trends. It was particularly disturbing as these evils have invaded where Buddhism has been predominant. By 3 p.m. we reluctantly took leave of Srimati Jayanti and party to proceed further. All the good works done by BRTF in road construction appear to have come to a standstill in Namsai as the road through Lathao, Sansab, Chowkham, Gunanagar up to Wakro were in shambles and the vehicle could proceed only very slowly. Nevertheless, the journey through the beautiful forest was memorable. The roads that I noticed were no better than it was 15 to 18 years ago. I also noticed that those areas have not shown any development all these years. I could still vividly recall some of the landmarks seen earlier and could easily relate them to the present one. Yet the sites of those beautiful Buddhist places of worship, the gompas painted in golden hues, constructed all across the places, were a wonderful sight to see. As we crossed Gunanagar, the first sight of those beautiful blue hills of Teju and Mayodhya could be seen, making us forget the ordeal on the roads. As the journey continued at a slow speed, the sun continued its tryst towards the western horizon, painting the whole area with golden color. We soon saw a jaded signboard with the words, "Welcome to Orange Valley." It signaled that our destination was about to reach, a news that peppered up our sagging spirits. From there the road conditions improved slightly and soon we were in front of a small building with a lantana fencing and a name board, Apne Library Wakro. From a distance we had noticed Sri Satyanarayanji standing by the side of the road with his never fading broad smile, just in case we missed the landmark and proceed further. At our signaling, the driver brought the vehicle to a screeching halt. Thus, by 6 p.m. we reached our destination Wakro, which would be our place of stay for the next couple of days.